Imagine if everything you thought you knew about the MCU was wrong, like completely flipped upside down, and the hero you've been cheering for since 2008 wasn't even who you thought he was. What if Tony Stark, Iron Man himself, the heart of the Avengers, wasn't really Tony at all, but someone far more dangerous hiding in plain sight this whole time? Sounds insane, right? Well, stick with me because once we start connecting the dots, you're going to see why this twist isn't just possible, it might be Marvel's most genius setup yet. So before your brain starts trying to fight me on this, let me just say, I had the exact same reaction. I thought, no way, this is too wild to be real. But then you start rolling back through the movies, through the little details you probably brushed past, and suddenly it's like, oh, wait a second, Marvel might have been hinting at this for years. And that's where the fun begins, because if this theory is right, the entire MCU replays in a completely different light. Let's go back to that scene in Endgame, the one where Tony travels to 1970 and runs into Howard Stark. It's a big emotional moment, right? Father and son? Well, sort of. But then Howard casually mentions that his wife is pregnant.
Got a big date tonight?
My wife's expecting.
And Tony's face freezes. Not like a normal, oh, that's cute, kind of frozen, but more of a hold on, the math isn't mathing, kind of frozen. Because if Maria was pregnant right then, Tony should have already been born. And that weird pause, that look on RDJ's face, wasn't just nostalgia, it was confusion, even fear, like something didn't add up. Most of us just moved on because, you know, Endgame was packed with emotional gut punches, but what if that was a breadcrumb? And then you rewind further, all the way back to Iron Man 2. Remember Howard's line, "My greatest creation is you"?
My greatest creation is you.
At first, it just feels like a sweet fatherly thing to say, but the word creation doesn't really fit, does it? He didn't say greatest gift or greatest achievement. Creation implies something made, and that's where it gets spooky, because what if Howard meant that literally? What if Tony Stark wasn't really his biological son at all, but someone else entirely? Now brace yourself, because this is where things start to split into multiversal brain-melting territory. What if Tony Stark, the guy we watched sacrifice himself to save the universe, wasn't Tony Stark, but Victor Von Doom? Yes, Doom. The same Doom we've been waiting to see officially show up in the MCU. And here's the kicker, it's not some stretch theory with 1 or 2 weak connections. The evidence is sprinkled everywhere if you know where to look. Let's put some real-world context behind this because Marvel has always played a long game. Back in 2005, before RDJ was even announced as Iron Man, he actually auditioned for Victor Von Doom in Fantastic Four. He didn't get the part, but fate's got a twisted sense of humor. Almost 2 decades later, Marvel is reportedly making him Doom anyway. That's not just a casting coincidence, that's a narrative seed planted way back that Marvel might finally be harvesting. And get this, the Russo brothers, the minds behind Infinity War and Endgame, once said they weren't planning to come back for Secret Wars unless there was an idea big enough to make it worth it. Recently, they admitted they heard a pitch so massive it made them call up Kevin Feige and say, okay, we're in. That idea? Robert Downey Jr. returning, and not as the Tony Stark we know, but as Doom. Suddenly, Kang is pushed to the side, Doom becomes the main event, and RDJ reportedly locks in a huge paycheck to come back. If that's true, then Marvel's about to play its boldest card yet. But why Doom? Why bring him in this way? Because Doom isn't just a mustache-twirling villain. He's layered, calculated, and he has history with Kang. In the comics, Doom's mastery of time travel and sorcery makes him one of the only people who can actually challenge Kang on his own turf. In fact, during the multiversal war hinted at in Loki, it's easy to imagine a timeline where Doom ruled. But when He Who Remains won that war, every other timeline, including Doom's, was erased. And instead of just wiping Doom out, Kang did something far crueler. He rewrote his entire existence. He placed him in the sacred timeline, had him adopted by Howard and Maria Stark, and erased his memories. So Doom grew up not as a tyrant, but as a hero. He lived his life as Tony Stark, completely unaware of who he really was. And suddenly, all those weird little moments in the MCU make sense. That strange look in Endgame, Howard's creation line. Tony solving time travel in one night when even Bruce Banner thought it was impossible. That's not just Stark genius, that's Doom genius leaking through. In the comics, time travel is Doom's specialty, so of course it took him one evening to crack it wide open. Now let's pause for just a second because I know this is a lot, and hey, if you're still watching, clearly you're just as deep into this rabbit hole as I am. So do me a quick favor, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and maybe share this with your Marvel-obsessed friend who still thinks Mephisto is showing up any day now. Alright, back to the madness. So here's where the twist becomes pure brilliance. People always complain that Doom doesn't have the same build-up that Thanos did. Thanos had years of post-credit teases leading up to Infinity War. Doom, we've heard nothing. But if Doom has actually been in front of us since 2008 disguised as Tony Stark, then that's not a lack of build-up. That's the greatest slow burn in cinematic history. We didn't just meet Doom, we lived with him for 20 years. And think about how it reframes Tony's arc. The sacrifice in Endgame still counts because Doom lived those moments. Those emotions were real. But when he finds out the truth that Kang erased his throne, his kingdom, his identity, suddenly his mission changes. It's not just about beating Kang, it's about revenge. And not just on Kang, but on everyone who played along in his imprisonment. That's why when Secret Wars comes, Doom won't just fight, he'll flip the board. He'll turn heroes into villains, not because he's brainwashing them, but because he'll tell them the truth. He'll reveal that their lives, their victories, even their families were all manipulated by Kang's sacred timeline. And you can bet some heroes will switch sides willingly once they realize it. Imagine Wanda finding out her kids were stolen from her timeline, or Thor discovering Asgard's destruction was engineered, or Spider-Man realizing his pain and losses were never meant to happen. Some of them won't just listen, they'll join Doom. That's how we get an army of evil Avengers, not controlled, but convinced. It's Doom's ultimate revenge. If Kang turned him into a hero, he'll turn the heroes into villains. But here's where Marvel's genius comes into play. Secret Wars isn't just going to be a massive battle story, it's their way of doing a soft reboot. Think about it. The current MCU timeline is packed with messy continuity, licensing rights drama, and missing characters. But by the end of Secret Wars, that all gets wiped clean. The sacred timeline is erased, and the Marvel Universe is restored to the way it was meant to be. Mutants, Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Avengers, all coexisting from the start. No weird multiverse excuses, no awkward recasts, just a clean slate. And in that restored universe, we finally meet the real Tony Stark. Not RDJ, maybe someone like Tom Cruise, maybe someone else entirely, but our Tony, not Doom. Meanwhile, RDJ's Doom either dies in a blaze of glory or escapes into another corner of the multiverse, leaving the door cracked open for a return down the line. That's the bittersweet beauty of it. Marvel gets to honor RDJ's legacy without undoing it. They're not saying Tony Stark didn't matter. They're saying the man we thought was Tony was always Doom, and that's why he was so compelling. Suddenly, all those moments, all that arrogance, that precision, the willingness to bend rules for the greater good, it wasn't just Stark, it was Doom. And when the mask finally comes off, you'll realize it was there all along. Now picture this. The Battle of Secret Wars is raging. Heroes and villains from across the multiverse are fighting side by side. Everyone's looking to Tony Stark for the plan, but at the crucial moment, he reveals the truth. He tells them their entire existence has been manipulated. And then the bombshell, he's not Tony at all, he's Doom. Some will hate him for it, others will follow him. And just like that, the entire Marvel universe splits in half. And when the dust settles, when the sacred timeline collapses and Marvel Prime is born, RDJ's Doom is gone. The universe resets, a new Tony Stark exists, and the MCU moves forward fresh. But we, the audience, will always remember that the man we followed from day one was never who we thought. And that's the kind of twist that makes people rewatch every single movie with new eyes. So yeah, maybe this theory sounds crazy, but if Marvel actually pulls it off, it won't just be the biggest twist in superhero movies, it'll rewrite the entire history of the MCU. And honestly, I'd pay good money to see that reveal blow the roof off a theater.